Thank you very much. We're going to go to table 2. Who's going to give the feedback? Come on, and if you can just say who you are and where you're from.
So I'm Richard Allen from the Mentor Initiative, and I come from a very wonderful table with loads of experience. And going from the high-tech science of resistance through to the much higher-tech operational demands of actually getting nets to people who need to sleep under them, we were looking at what does it take to get nets over the top of people who need them, and where are the problems in that, and what are the possible mechanisms. And just looking at the systems of distribution, we had nice captured experience from different countries of methods that have used some form of established health structure and process, whether it be the antenatal clinics that we've heard about a little bit in some of the presentations this morning, whether it be EPI process of people coming in to have their children vaccinated, whether it be campaigns taken out to the communities to do mass EPI or mass measles vaccination campaigns or polio campaigns, adding nets on to that. We also talked about the disadvantages that those type of excellent access systems give us. Whilst they get numbers of people very readily, they also have a problem, and that is single point, short time contact with the individuals. And that makes it difficult to give enough education about usage and how to maintain nets. And that's just a real disadvantage with large-scale distribution systems. At the health system itself, where people are waiting longer for other services, then the opportunity to pass good education is better. All of those are effectively push systems with recipients who are there. We also talked about going out to schools and other places where people collect in a way that you know you're getting to the target audience, i.e. children and potentially those who they influence in their families, and the value of school distribution systems, potentially also churches and other places where people gather. All of those have advantages, all of them have disadvantages. Some of them are clear and obvious. They tend to revolve around who goes to those facilities. Not all children go to school. In Angola, only about half the children go, half the children don't. So there are access issues in every country. There are equity issues with the different distribution systems. Then we added on commercial. Joe said this morning we should leave that one alone, really, because it knows how to do business very well in terms of people who sell nets in the marketplaces. They do. They know business much better than people in public health ever will. However, just as we have engaged with the private sector for malaria treatment and are successfully now in multiple countries establishing private sector malaria case management at good quality level with pilot programs across many countries, so too might we explore doing the same thing with good quality nets, creating demand in the commercial sector on the ground, using proper HUPES approved nets to create demand even for people who are paying. We talked about cost. Is cost an issue? Well, it's not really. It hasn't been an issue for a long time because we haven't been charging people for nets for a long time. What we've effectively been doing over the last 10 years is creating a demand, a marketplace without cost. As our funding starts to degenerate, and I think it was Joe that showed us it this morning and others, the funding is going down. We know that. The institutional buyers are buying less and less nets, and they will continue to buy less and less nets as the years go on. All that does is if there are nets in the commercial marketplace locally, good quality nets that we'd want to see and not bad quality ones, it means that people already have a value built up, a net culture built up by the years of mass distributions, and can buy as well as receive for free, even in the same context. Though it helps to know, because in some countries, some people may hold on for a free mass distribution that they perceive is going to happen sometime ahead, rather than go out and buy a replacement net which might be available immediately. So the conclusion we came to is that there are multiple channels of distributing, all of which have merit. None of these are new. We were doing these all 15 years ago, and we discarded most of them in place of mass distributions. what we're seeing now is that mass distribution is a great way of getting an initial large-scale presence of nets. I won't even use the word usage, but a large-scale presence of nets and a large-scale understanding of nets on the ground. And a multitude of other mechanisms for sustaining that level of distribution, that level of coverage, is needed. And in any one country, a country needs to select the different methods of distribution that might be available to them to keep that up. And it will be different in different countries, from right the way down to community workers with various house-to-house contact services that have nothing to do perhaps with malaria, but onto which nets can be added. So we then talked about another factor, which is about cost, and about if a family is going to have the disruption of needing a net and replacing a net. In some situations, as we know, it might be as often as every year, if a net is not very durable in that setting. In other settings, it might be every 3 years, maybe. It might be 2, it might be 15 months. But there's an economic value as well as a health value as soon as a family only needs to replace a net perhaps every 5 or 6 years, because the disruption to them and the ability to save up for it, obviously there are advantages there. And the perceived value of the net, if it lasts longer, might also well go up, as the amount of times they have to take their children to the hospital or the health facility to have a diagnosis and treatment for an unknown fever go down. So there are values in terms of improving the quality of the nets that we feed into that distribution system in order to build up the value perceived by the families and the real economic and health impacts of having those better quality nets.
Great, thank you.